Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grow With Us. My name is Evan Barton, and I'm your host who helps create conversations with the innovators and leaders of a growing tech center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Grow With Us podcast highlights the work of community leaders, tech entrepreneurs, nonprofit professionals, and talent development advocates in Tulsa. Grow With Us is a podcast of In Tulsa. In Tulsa's mission is to connect talented individuals and companies to stimulate economic growth in Tulsa and to create more prosperous communities across the region. Each episode, Grow With Us discusses the growth of opportunities, the growth of communities striving for change, or the tech and innovation that is changing the landscape of Tulsa. On this episode of Grow With Us, I speak with Brooke Randels, the Director of Early Career Talent Programs. Brooke and I discuss the recent merger of Campus Tulsa and Tulsa Service Year's teams into Early Career Talent Programs, the Young Smart Local Network and Talent Retention's Working Group, and reflections on evolving management styles. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grow With Us. I am so excited to welcome Brooke Randels to the podcast in video form.
I know.
She's back. This is going to be a great episode. Brooke, I'm so excited, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I feel like I've watched you evolve in this podcast, and I feel honored to become into video mode, but also just excited to be here with you and chat and have this time where we do that because it's not how we spend every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we spend, at least 1 hour every day, like intentionally doing something like this where we're talking through business and things like that. But I think the podcast is a little bit of a lighter conversation in some regards. We are going to get into some things that are very much related to what we're doing and things we're excited to talk about and we're both passionate about. But we can also laugh at some of the silly things that we do. Not that we don't do that in our little one-on-ones, but just a different environment for it.
A special time for it. So,
yes,
I agree.
But yeah, I'm super excited to have you on. You're one of my third or fourth repeat guests, which is exciting. So what that means is we don't answer the questions in the same order. And I try and mix things up a little bit for people that come back on, and especially in different capacities. Because since I first had you on, our relationship has changed a lot. And a lot has changed since you've been on. So I'd love for you to kind of share some of the highlights since your last Grow With Us appearance, which I have date-wise for you. January 2023 is when people were introduced to who Brooke Randels is. That's what's happened in a year and 9 months?
Yeah, I mean, so much. I mean, I think to start with kind of what you alluded to already, when I came here the last time, I didn't have a team. Yeah. And now, you're on my team. We have other great individuals. We have Sergio Smith, Becky Kurtz, Tim Goen, and Reem, all on the stream team. And that is obviously a huge change. And any partners of Campus Tulsa especially would be able to say, oh, yeah, things changed when that happened. But really, I think since the last time I was here, there's been tremendous changes in programming. We'd come off of a summer of under 50 interns and students interacting with us for a summer, and we grew to 135 that next summer. And then you and I are coming off of a really great summer of 220 interns in the cohort for Campus Tulsa. And so that has been amazing just to see what time and patience and putting a team together to really work on a project can do. And I think it's really exciting just thinking about the investment we're trying to make in young people and people looking for internships and in internships. So that has been truly such a rewarding experience of being patient, doing the work, and then seeing the outcomes. Yeah. Obviously, something I hope we talk about today, and I know we will, is that we now have joined forces with Tulsa Service Year. Yeah. And thinking about how we treat early career programs in Tulsa and how we really support students and talent in being connected with opportunity here. And so that's also just so exciting. But I would say, the biggest changes have been that we've been able to build a strong team, whether it was previously when we were a team of, 3 or 4 this summer, and now we're a team of 5, right? Let me do my math.
I'm 6.
6. We are a team of 6. Thank you, Evan. And just seeing what time and patience and putting the work in can do has been, I think, so rewarding for us as a team. And, it feels good. We want to make that investment in students and interns. So it feels really good.
Yeah. And I mean, to your credit, you're also with building that team, you're also making that investment in professionals and people that are committed to this work. I'm included in that. And I've seen, since I've joined your team and been a part of campus, like I have been able to try so many different things. I mean, you really do like give me the freedom and the trust to say, hey, I actually don't know about this, but Evan's going to take the wheel on this. And I'm sometimes quietly like, I don't really know what I'm doing either, but we figure it out, or we talk about it, or we navigate it together, which is the most important part. And I think that's not something you just extend to me. It's something that our whole team shares. And I've seen development in Sergio. If Grow With Us listeners will remember Sergio Smith from an episode that we did last year. He's been on the podcast as well. And I love that I have had almost all my teammates on the podcast now. Because prior to joining campus, I felt like the team that I was on was always like many people like above me in terms of like managerial responsibilities and levels. And I was sometimes like the lowest in some ways. And so to be like now kind of all in the same or at least a very similar like reporting structure. Like we all have responsibilities. We all have like programs that we're running, or parts of the program that we're owning, budgets that we run. Like that type of autonomy in our work is something that you've given me and also members of our team. And that's like, I think what has led to a really strong and successful program.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's like being in this role, like the hardest thing for me to learn has just been, how do you lead people and do it well? And I think I've been really fortunate, I will say that, where I think there have been several people who have made an investment in teaching me those skills. Yeah. But I've also been really fortunate because, like, let's talk about you. You're so capable and you're always so committed to like figuring out how to do something, or finding best practices, or leaning into taking a little bit of a risk in order to create an outcome. And I think that really goes for most of our team. And so I've just also been really fortunate that the team has trusted me with taking some leaps of faith and doing things that maybe we've never done before, but we've seen other people do, or we think could really work, or our students are telling us, hey, this is how you should be doing it. And sometimes that's scary because although, I mean, there are especially 2 members on the team who are pretty close to the age of the interns that we're working with. Our lives are so much different than what their lives are like. And so just kind of leaning into that. But I do appreciate you saying that. I think over time, that has been something that I have just been fortunate enough to learn and lean into, is that all of you are capable of running your prospective parts of the program, and giving you that trust and making that investment has definitely led to the outcomes that we have now. I think that's very evident. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, like when I first approached the work of campus, like, we had that one conversation on the couch in 3N about like what type of role I was even thinking about, or what roles that you were looking at expanding. It was like very evident to me that you like had every single hat on, even at that time. And I think that that hasn't changed at all. I think even in the trust that you've given to our team to run our respective parts of the program, like you still have on that hat. You're just able to take it off sometimes, which is cool. Yeah, it's hard to take off sometimes. I think that's something I learned about myself, is like, let it go. Yeah. But I also think I am just really lucky to be able to know that I can put on a hat with each of you sometimes and brainstorm and toss things around and say, well, have you thought about this? And also solicit for feedback of, hey, I want to do this. And, it's not always comfortable to hear, that's a terrible idea, Brooke. But you all provide me with that feedback, which is also super great as well. And I think that has just been the basis of our Campus Tulsa team. And now I see that really kind of coming across the early career programs team in general, is always being honest and giving feedback. And so it allows us to have fun and explore each other's parts of the program, and also be able to hear when we could do better or when we're doing great. And it's really great to always have a team you can depend on to like provide you with that feedback. Absolutely. Yeah. Zooming out a little bit, I want to hear kind of, I said I was departing from some of the standard questions, but like the Tulsa question is always going to be one that you'll have a different answer on. And so I'm curious, since we've last heard from you on the podcast, what has your relationship with Tulsa been like? Any major changes or things that are affecting you differently?
Yeah, I think last time I was here, I talked about community and the way that the Tulsa community has just taken me in. I think that holds true. Now it's funny being in the phase of life that I'm in now. I see myself not just soaking up all of the giant hug of the Tulsa community, so to speak, but maybe becoming a part of it and planning how my family is a part of it. And, when you asked me last time, I was probably thinking that, Tulsa could be where I'm going to be, but there maybe was like the little 10% that's like, but could I fly away one day? And I don't think that that's still there. You know me well, like now, since then I've, started a family here in Tulsa and really just made that type of investment.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun for me now on the side of receiving so much love from Tulsa, thinking about how my family and I can also be a part of that.
Yeah.
I will say I do still feel so much love from the Tulsa community. I think that's always going to be my biggest blessing, so to speak, as I've become a Tulsan. But now I think where I'm at is thinking about my family in Tulsa and how do we contribute and how do we give people the same experience that I had as they come in. And I think that in my personal life, but I also think as we welcome interns every year, whether they're from here or not, someone could have grown up here and not had the Tulsa hug yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so really just making that investment in other people and helping them have the experience that I've had is really where I'm standing now. And I think last time I was just like, I'm so grateful. Everyone is so awesome here. I love them all. And now I'm kind of switching to this place of thinking about, okay, well, how can I love other people into seeing the Tulsa that I've been able to see?
Yeah, I love that. I think in so many ways, that's the similarities I see between you and I, because I share a lot of those same sentiments. And like, how can I take what I've been given and give it right back? The reciprocity, mindset. I see that in the way that you navigate the world a lot. And one of the ways that I've particularly seen that is kind of through our Spanish language journey, which we're sharing, or I'm following in your footsteps on, which is super cool. And I mean, you introduced me to Miguel and having the opportunity to take his classes. I'm still in his classes to this day. And really what that means for both of us in terms of investing in our language acquisition skills is being able for more people to fit in the hug, for more people to hug you back, because I think my philosophy on language has kind of shaped into this, we can't be thinking that we're only going to have conversations with people that we can have conversations with. What I mean by that is we need to expand who we can include in those conversations. And language is one of the easiest. Easy is not maybe the right word, but it's the first step in that.
Yeah.
And we're both going down that path.
It's the more obvious step. It's when you have the ability to speak someone else's language, the level of connection you can create at that point, I think it just multiplies tremendously.
Yeah.
And, thinking about yourself, if you're in a place where no one is speaking your language and someone even just tries, the amount of comfort that can give a person and connection, I think is just, people connect all the time without speaking the same language, and it's really special. But adding that layer of, speaking the same language, even if you technically speak the same language, but being able to share some commonalities there, I think it's really important. So I've been proud of you in this journey. I'm super jealous of you that you're still taking classes with Miguel. So if he listens to this, offer a class for me, please.
I know. I need intermediate grammar too. I need the whole sequence.
Can you teach translation Spanish to English, please? No, I know that those teachers are awesome and great. No shade to anybody, but I have been excited to see you go through this journey, and it's fun. I also think, we'll add maybe first 5 minutes of check-ins in Spanish.
We need to do that.
Yeah.
It's I mentioned it the other day, and I'm as scared as I am to do it, it just feels so necessary towards the reason that I started on this journey is to use it. So you gotta use it. And I think using it, or starting off using it in the context in which I want to use it in the first place, even if we're chatting about Yo Estudio in La Escuela, even if we're saying elementary phrases and stuff, it will build to, maybe I'm talking to you about HubSpot in Spanish or something. Those things will I mean, that is how we can use language to, I mean, meet there, and that, if that makes sense, like even in our professional lives, even if we're talking about personal stuff, it can be all done through language. We can choose English or Spanish. So
yeah, and like the importance of your role, like you're so publicly facing in the work that you do, even when your actual face is not in front of everybody, you're doing social, you're doing mailings, you're doing all these things. And language is so much more than the language, it's cultural too. So you having these cultural understandings, you having these like baseline language understandings of a really popular language that's spoken in Tulsa, right?
Of a huge
Spanish.
community here.
It's a massive community. It just like provides you personally with this lens as you continue to do that work.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think about this all the time, you know, how many students we're interfacing with whose parents would much rather speak in Spanish or maybe only do speak Spanish. Yeah. And so having team members who can help a student on their journey, whether that is providing them with context to their parent and their preferred language or whatever that might be. I mean, I'm really proud of you for taking that step. Just as a person, it's definitely challenging language acquisition. Yeah. And especially, I think, you know, you have so much work that you manage. You do the podcast, you do campus and Tulsa service here, you're doing all these things. So I'm proud of you for that. But I think when you come out on the other end of it, you're going to just feel so good about the work that you did on that, because it's providing you with more than just being able to, you know, ask someone if they need some help or assistance or having a small conversation in a grocery store, but it's going to help you really like in your career and being mindful of other communities in Tulsa. And in particular, that community is a really large community in Tulsa. Yeah. That deserves access to the type of programming that we're providing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm this is like the silliest aside, but I've been watching Modern Family a bunch, and it just takes me back to that Gloria quote where she's like, "I am so smart in Spanish." And it's like, because oftentimes like she's the butt of every joke that relates to like a misunderstanding when it comes to language. And like that is so, I don't know. I just think about it a lot because like I want to be smart in Spanish. I want to be funny in Spanish. I mean, I want to be funny in English, but there's like, it takes work, and you know, it's not, that's coming from a native speaker. And I think there's many layers to like explaining that joke, but in essence, it's like, I want to be me in every language. And I want to be able to communicate who I am with the tools and with the same way that I carry myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that's funny. And I will tell you, and I don't know if I've told you this before, but JC, my partner, whose first language is Spanish, had put me on to this. So I'll put you onto it too. Yes. Watch Shrek in Spanish. Like that is the most accurate, funny translation to watch a movie where the translations actually make sense. Yeah. It's really funny. I think it's like borderline. So yeah, the movie's funny too. Like there's some jokes that you're like, oh wow. But it's definitely a good one for you to check out, and I think will make your Spanish journey more fun too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. We're going to take a quick little break.
Okay.
All right, we're back, and I really want to talk about specifically our purviews and how things have kind of changed in our world. I think for you and I both specifically in terms of and our team, early career talent programs. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love for you to explain the merger. I think you've had the language longer than I have. I mean, I'm in marketing, so I get what we need to tell people. But like, I'd love to kind of hear from you, what early career talent programs are in terms of our work. Tulsa Service Year, Campus Tulsa, now kind of under one moniker, if you will. What do people need to know about these two programs?
Yeah, I mean, I think baseline, both programs were created with this intention to attract and retain talent in some capacity. With Campus Tulsa, we're thinking about, okay, who's here that should be getting internship opportunities? We know internships can be a really big career trajectory moment where you can learn a lot about maybe what you like and don't like, get connected, networking. In the Tulsa Service Year side, I was actually really fortunate. I did kind of like a little history lesson on Tulsa Service Year this week.
Did you see my application?
No, I didn't.
I applied to the first cohort.
Oh, I didn't know that. And now I'm going to ask. I just received the data from Becky on all the past cohorts, but I got a little how was Tulsa service year born history lesson this last week, which was super enlightening that it's not only this opportunity in terms of career and, you know, just a personal investment that you can make into a fellow, but it also was born out of this idea that how powerful is a year of service in someone's life.
Yep.
And, you know, the brains that came together both at the Kretz Family Foundation and the George Kaiser Family Foundation, their thought was just about how impactful a year of service to your community or to a community can be.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really special and worth noting about the program as well, is that it's not just providing this employment opportunity to work for an organization, but it's really about building this service mind and thinking about how the work that a lot of these organizations that partner with Tulsa Service Year are creating an impact in the Tulsa community.
Yeah.
But to kind of get back to the basis, we're really thinking about this in two ways, which is one, we want for people to be able to find opportunity in this city. And so connecting them to an internship or a fellowship is a really great first step in the like long-term goals of their career and life.
Yeah.
And then the other side of that is we're also building a talent pool for employers, and employers have, you know, a lot of responsibility in this work as well to make investment in talent, to hire talent, to see them through early career programs and bring them on, you know, beyond that date.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that both of these programs are really focused on making this investment in a person and also providing an employer with support and making an investment in Tulsa. Let's build up the workforce in Tulsa. Let's build the community here, and let's create opportunities that change lives.
Yeah.
And so thinking about those two things, I think it marries really well to think about both of our organizations working together. We do some of the same events at different times. We should do those events together. And also, you know, I tell you this a lot. I dream about things at work, and I can't remember if this is real life or my dream.
Well,
but
I tell you, I wish you wouldn't.
I know. But don't worry, everyone. I'm not stressed about work. I just am processing my day, I think.
Yes.
But, you know, the impact, too, that it could have on an intern, especially, you know, I think about our Tulsa Community College interns who are coming into our program. And to meet someone who's graduated from a 4-year institution that's doing this year of service, that's made a choice to be in Tulsa, just the impact that can have, like peer-to-peer as well.
Yeah,
so
the impact by association.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm really excited to see is the way that we can combine programming. I mean, each program will remain its own, and the branding remains, and the way that fellows work and interns work are very different. But providing spaces for them all to connect, and so on and so forth. And then I think, too, there's two really great teams. I mean, I think I brag a lot. I think anyone who's met Campus Tulsa team and anyone who had met the Tulsa Service Year team wants them to be their team. And so now we have this opportunity to pull two great teams together and create real impact. And so the way it works on the back end, which is really where the only changes are happening, is that everyone has responsibility at both programs. Externally, you know, every student who interfaces with either program, their experience will be the same.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, to add comfort to the interns or the fellows that are part of programming currently, that all remains the same. And so that's exciting. Now we have more really bright brains at the table thinking about how we do this work. And then we also have this ability to create true pathways into Tulsa. And, you know, Campus Tulsa is producing about 220 interns this last summer. Tulsa Service Year has 13 fellows right now, and probably looking to stay in that 13 to 15 range yearly. It's a really sweet spot, but nonprofit industry is one of our largest intern employers in the city. And so being able to provide a true pathway for someone who comes to Tulsa or stays in Tulsa, does a nonprofit internship, finds this love for service, and to know that there's a fellowship program. It's not just applying to full-time roles, but there's a fellowship program that could allow them to try something, be a part of a cohort, have that extra assistance in their, you know, coming to Tulsa, homemaking in Tulsa.
Yeah.
It's really awesome. And so I'm super excited about that. And, you know, someone actually recently asked me, well, do you think you're going to have career changers, like corporate interns who are like, actually, I have a heart for service. What are my options?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say no, right?
Yeah.
We've done this with Teach for America. Their team has been amazing and come in and done a dinner in the summer to talk about what it looks like to work in education. And there are corporate interns that show up to that with this interest of like, yes, maybe I love accounting. Who knows?
Not me.
I was like, I don't know much about loving accounting, but someone out there probably thinks that they do or knows that that's something that they like. But
absolutely.
Maybe being in a classroom is in the back of their mind. And so I think...
Or always has been,
Yeah. So I think forming those relationships like what we've done with the Teach for America, we do see career changers or people who, get into a accounting internship and then are coming to our events like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And so kind of providing some opportunity. But I do think that Tulsa Service Year is like the perfect addition to the work that we're doing at Campus Tulsa in terms of the way that it can build a pathway for a student. And then I think on the operational side, what better way for us to be more efficient and be more impactful for more people than to combine forces. And so it's really exciting. Really excited about the team. That's like the first thing that comes out of my mouth when I tell anybody. I'm like, Dr. Andrea Williams did a phenomenal job leading Tulsa Service Year and did a phenomenal job working with her team. And then to be able to step in and see the work that she's done and see the way that her team has been developed. I mean, it's just truly really exciting for me as a leader. And so I'm definitely very excited about this work and think that it's going to lead us to a bright future in early career programs in Tulsa.
Yeah, I love that. I think I'll hit on two things that kind of further your points there as well. We have in this current cohort of fellows that started in May of 24 and will end their 1 year of service in 25. From that cohort, we had 3 former Campus Tulsa interns that became Tulsa Service Year fellows. So you're talking about that pathway to opportunity. That pathway existed in our programming before early career talent programs became kind of one thing. So it's already happening. We're getting to see what those connections look like for those fellows and what that hopefully future, hopefully previous cohorts of Campus Tulsa, Campus Tulsa alumni will see the Tulsa Service Year fellow application coming up in the fall. And see that as an opportunity for them to hey, I really liked Tulsa. How could I stay? How could I get involved? Or, I'm graduating this year. How do I, find that next step? Well, we'd love to see your application. Those types of things. And then also events. I mean, during the summer is the first 2 to 3 months that a fellow is here in Tulsa. And then we bring in, nearly 200 people with Campus Tulsa summer engagement calendar and everything and all the internships that are going on. Those are just multiple opportunities in order to combine programming in that regard so that we're welcoming people that are, slightly in different career points in their life, whether they're continuing their studies or this is their first job. In some ways, those people are the ones that need to be networking with each other. And we get the opportunity to create that. So I'm really excited about that.
Me too. I'm super excited. And then I think to that point as well, this allows us to see where the gaps will be. We have 2 really strong programs that have grown tremendously, really got their footing in the last, I think Tulsa Service Year really they've gotten their footing over the last 4 and 5 years. We're recruiting cohort 6 right now. And so Campus Tulsa, I think the last 2 years is where you could say, okay, they know what they're doing now, especially this last summer. But where are the gaps? Maybe there's room in the future to think about what early career programs don't exist that would be helpful in providing support and investment in the talent that exists here or the talent that's interested in being here. And so I'm just excited about the opportunity for it all. And I think, over time, we will just continue to see how these programs can work together, can make impacts in the city. And I think, I'm on this listening tour right now with employer partners and hearing their thoughts and just understanding what this means to them. And I think in the nonprofit world, the feedback I have gotten is this is perfect. We're building a talent pipeline that will be interested in Tulsa Service Year and just continuing to create connections that are going to lead to 2 really fruitful programs. And so it's really exciting to get that type of feedback as well.
That's awesome.
I'm just stoked. So
That is great. I do want to focus a little bit on the Campus Tulsa side, just because that's really the perspective we're both coming from with stepping into this new role. We had a really awesome summer this past year. I feel like I'm still like taking deep breaths now that we're done with it, because it was so busy and there were lots of things, but there was lots of excitement, lots of buzz. But we recently had the opportunity, and this was all you. I'm not even going to take any amount of credit for this work, but like you had the opportunity to host a corporate night about Campus Tulsa and kind of talking through the impact of our program, year to year. And when we say year to year, we really mean like the calendar or the school year, August to August, essentially. And so, you really talked about what the impact of Campus Tulsa was to a room full of employers that, who their interns went through our program and had, for all that we know, great experiences, not only with Tulsa as a city, but also through the employer, connection of that internship. And so I'd love for you to kind of run through some of the major metrics of Campus Tulsa's 2023, 2024, things that you want to highlight about how our work really came together in 1 year.
Yeah, there's like a few metrics that immediately stand out to me. And so first, I would love to talk about our housing program. Big shout out to Brooke Smart. I think it would be a huge miss to not mention her here, although she has transitioned to work at TU for her dream job, which we're super excited for her.
We love Brooke Smart on this podcast.
Come back, Brooke Smart. No, super excited for her in this new journey, but she really helped us overhaul the housing program and think about how we can provide more housing to more people and be of service not only to students and interns, but to employers. Yep. So we hit just under 100 interns living with us. We had 96 interns living with us this summer. We have the capacity to house 150. And we were able to really come in for employers and say, hey, here's this option. For employers who are providing a lot of recruiting, especially at institutions that are not in the state of Oklahoma, this is a great opportunity for them. So they're able to find the people not from here and say, hey, you've never been to Tulsa before, maybe you have, housing could be hard to find. Here's a really easy option for you.
We heard from an employer yesterday, sorry to jump in here, that they came... previously what they had been doing was commissioning some Airbnb for 11 rooms for their 11 interns that they had. And I'm like, how do you find something like that? It's wild.
It's super wild. And also, the housing situation in Tulsa right now, just like I think every mid-sized city, is that there's probably not enough. And what exists is pricey. Yep. We had an intern this summer who learned about us in his final week, and he spent $2,500 a month to live here during his internship. And so he had to actually, from the sounds of it, borrow money from his parents because he paid his rent with all the money he made for the summer and then was unable to do the other things. And so we don't want that to happen. No. We want someone to be able to, pay for school or use their money from their internship in other ways than to buy a short-term lease at $2,500 a month. But I think that program, having 96 people live with us, and that made a huge impact for employers. But besides that, we've seen an increase in students who have extreme needs with housing. Maybe they are currently unhoused. Maybe they, have $0 to their name and are making $15 an hour. We've had, people who can't live at home anymore come into our mix a lot. And so it's not necessarily that I'm unhoused yet, but I have a short amount of time to figure this out. And so I think what's been really awesome too, and I think as the program director, I would, thank our corporates for making the investment in housing with us too, because for interns or students who wouldn't have the opportunity to intern unless someone made that housing piece happen, the corporates have really allowed us to do that by making an investment in housing with us. So, definitely would thank them for believing in the housing program and funneling talent our way and allowing us to cover the costs for interns who are unhoused. And they are equally as deserving as the internship opportunity that they interviewed for and won. Yeah. But it's really hard to make it to work every day if you're thinking about where you're going to take a shower, how I'm going to brush my teeth. Am I staying in my car? Am I staying with a friend? And so that has been really awesome, I think. So housing program, hands down, really has blossomed and provided resources for people who really need it. And then our employers who are bringing people here who could really use a better resource than an Airbnb or putting someone in a hotel for 12 weeks.
For 12 weeks. I mean,
which is not fun either. And then I would say we had interns from 91 employers this summer, which is super exciting, whether they lived with us, came to events with us, or engaged with us in some other way. Maybe it was online. They reached out, let us know they were coming. 91 employers. And so that's super exciting for us to be able to connect with the employer community in that way, especially the private sector. We tend to have a really good hand on nonprofits and public sector employers, and we have great relationships there. But for us to make that step into the private sector and create a lot of new relationships has been amazing. And I think you see that impact, especially with our mid and small size businesses who are only hiring a couple interns. Their intern gets access to a whole lot of community. So that's super exciting. We had a really great summer of events. I mean, hands down, Curcio worked really hard to connect people into the best and also right parts of Tulsa. Highlighted some really awesome Tulsans and some of our events and programming. So I would say that experience and the feedback we've gotten from interns on being able to connect with a real Tulsa that is also fun and exciting was really, really great as well. And so those are three things that come to mind for sure when I think about that evening and some of the things that we are most excited to share with our employer partners. And I think it just sets us up to look forward to providing more resources for them and really just making sure that they're a part of this work with us. And, this year we released housing in August, and we already have employers who put our housing information in their offer letters so that people know exactly what their option is as soon as they get an offer. And so just continuing on this path with them is really exciting. And I think just looking up for us right now.
That's awesome. And I mean, I think you put together like a lovely evening of how we can experience all of the program impacts. And I want to give a shout out to Chris Fling at Primary Fuels for allowing us to share really the impact of our program, the impact of Campus Tulsa specifically, with the employers that were present there. So Chris is a great partner, and just want to give him a shout out.
Absolutely.
There.
Chris is the best. If you don't know Chris Fling at Primary Fuels, you should make it a part of your to-do list to touch base with him, learn about him. He has just been a great partner in this and really sees the value and the investment that we're making right now in Tulsa and in students and interns. And so he's awesome. Totally agree. I met with him before I hired a team. I remember I went to this coffee shop. I'm like looking up Primary Fuels. I'm like, what do these people do? I'm researching. And then he shows up and he's like, hey, let's talk about this. And I mean, from the moment we chatted, I was like, he really understands what it is to make an investment in talent. And he's a small company, He's not going to ever hire 50 interns, and why he doesn't have enough things for, he might tell me that he doesn't have things for them to do, but he's not going to do that. But seeing Tulsa as his city and a city he wants to make an investment in, and he has continued to support us through that. And so he's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of back to some of the metrics there. I mean, housing is amazing. Those numbers are really great. We love the opportunity to provide that resource and like necessity to people. I mean, you have to have a place to live to, engage in this like type of professional development that we're offering, these type of employment opportunities like that. I really don't take that program for granted at all in terms of what it can provide to students. So I'm really glad that that's a part of our program. And then, just to jump back to events too. I mean, yes, Curcio did an amazing job, but we got like such great feedback on events. I want to say numbers, but I don't have them like concrete enough in my brain to like cite how our exit survey turned out. But we did get really great feedback anecdotally on kind of what the events were like to people, and whether it was the right mix, whether there was content relevant. I mean, we really focus on professional development and like some of those softer skills, which are things that employers say interns need to either have already before an internship, or like really that internship time is meant to cement those skills. And so we kind of meet students where they're at, wherever they're at in that journey during the summer. And then it's also really focused on like the community, 12 weeks or 10 to 12 week internship. How do you figure out what's going on in a city in that short amount of time? That's what Campus Tulsa is here to do. So having the opportunity to, have a dinner at Burning Cedar Sovereign Wellness was amazing. Getting to have a community organization meet a group of interns from, however many countries we had represented, however many universities we had represented in our cohort. That was meaningful because that was something that no other place could offer. Same with like a Turkey Mountain hike, which I know not very many people ended up showing up to, but the 2 students that went had a great freaking time and I was there with them. But yeah, it kind of all just goes back to like, we are, in some ways like making an investment in a student and by providing this programming to them at no cost, but also like we're hoping that we can sort of usher them into navigating it on their own. And learning how to do that as a young person is something that I don't think you'll ever get to a point where you take that for granted because you'll look back and be like, so glad that I had this community, or I'm so glad that someone told me to come to a Campus Tulsa event, hopefully, if you have the opportunity to do that.
No, I totally agree. It was a fun summer. And I think, too, that would be the other metric I'd add. I think we had 59 universities represented this summer. So about 21 states, I think, and 59 universities. And so that's exciting, too.
Yeah.
Tulsa's reach is expanding. And the other exciting part of it is that we're seeing students from Tulsa attending institutions in and out of the state and choosing to come back to Tulsa for an internship. Yeah. And that's really exciting, too.
Yeah, I love that. That really just, it's the thread of what our programs are meant to do. So I'm really excited about continuing this work and also continuing to see how it evolves in the future. So another kind of element of our work that is really a nationwide effort in some ways is we've had the opportunity to, through your leadership, really step into a space that is a nationwide network of programs that really kind of align behind college retention programs. And we've sort of created this like working group that was led by someone at Campus Rock, which is Campus Rochester, a program very similar to ours. And through her leadership, got it kind of started, stood it up. And then we've had the opportunity to kind of step in. And this is really a place where you've leaned in a lot in terms of like running the program and creating the opportunities and the conversations around a conversation about how do different regions across the nation retain their local college talent, whether it's local students going to college and coming back, kind of like you just mentioned, or retaining the university talent that's in their region, but still being lost to different regions due to competitiveness and things like that. And so it's really kind of a part of this community that is the young, smart, and local community that we also have had the opportunity to participate in. Really, that was like my introduction into like what Campus Tulsa does and to you personally when we went to Greensboro in 2022. And so last year we went to New Orleans. This year we're going to Philadelphia. I'm really kind of excited to dive a little bit into this topic and hear kind of from your perspective what the network, the Young Smart Local Network, the College Retention Programs Group, really what that looks like in terms of the Campus Tulsa context and now the Early Career Talent Programs context.
Yeah, well, Young Smart and Local as an entity has been so impactful in really the direction of Campus Tulsa. And so I would just say, too, if you're a person who's interested in early career programs or thinking about, college educated talent in particular, or maybe even just early career, like I wouldn't even go so far to say you have to be thinking about this in a traditional like 4-year degree manner.
Yeah.
It's a great place for you to go and go to a conference, join the retention group, and think about how you're doing the work that you're doing and how you're aiming for that, like what your outcomes are that you're aiming for, how you're doing the work to get there, and then what that looks like for you. And if you're actually creating the impact.
Yeah.
And so Campus Philly, obviously Action Greensboro, super, super impactful, and really the creation of Campus Tulsa.
Yeah.
And their partnership, the leaders that are all a part of Young, Smart, and Local, there's several of them. Their partnership has been super impactful to our program. So it has been a great place if you're interested in talent attraction, retention. Even if you're interested in thinking across generations, it's a conference you should find yourself at some point in time, which, I think I can say this now, but I do invite you to join us in Tulsa for 2025. We're super excited. We are the hosts for Young, Smart, and Local 2025. Your early career programs will be working alongside the Chamber and other organizations that focus on talent here in Tulsa to bring together an amazing conference that will tickle your fancy.
Yes.
But no, I think that you should check it out. But our involvement with the College Retention Working Group, which thank you to you, because you were like, Brooke, you should do this. And at the time I was like, ugh, okay. Let's do it. And I think being a program that's not as established as Campus Philly, right? They've been in the game for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they know exactly what they're doing. I mean, I don't want to misspeak, but they're working with like 20,000 students a year. And excuse me if I'm wrong on that number.
They have a huge university network there. I mean,
yeah. And so being in a program that's a little earlier in stages, but more established than some, we've been able to provide just panels, whether it's employers, whether it's early career talent from different cities. We recently did one about measuring program success. How do you build a logic model? How do you think about the work that you're doing? And it provides us all this space to come and learn. And yes, Campus Tulsa is putting together the agenda or inviting the speakers or doing some of the presentations, but it's really a space for us all to learn from each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's been so just amazing to hear the questions that people are asking, understand that, you know, in some ways we are competitors, I guess you could say. We all want talent to choose our region, but ultimately each of our regions is special and unique. And we want to help each other run the best program that we can in our own region. And it's been really great. I mean, I've been really amazed to see the growth of programs that are in these with us. I mean, Cedar Rapids, Iowa comes to mind for me in particular. Baldwin County, Alabama. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Now I'm nervous, but
I'm like, we've met folks from Montana. There's been like literally every state almost like has someone who is in workforce development or who is, you know, thinking about early career talent or corporate attraction, even for that matter. Like they also have to, you know, kind of turn around and also think about how they're attracting talent to their region to fill those jobs, to fill those everything. And so it's really a like melding of minds of industry professionals in workforce development, higher education, you know, marketing in many ways, because it is a lot about brand and regional marketing. I think that comes into play with this entire strategy, as well as like I said, industry and the different types of industry. It really becomes like tiered and layered from there, which is why it's such a strong network. I mean, and we do have so much to learn from each other. I don't think that everything that Philly's doing is going to work in Tulsa, and everything that's working in Tulsa isn't going to work for New Orleans. That's obviously why I think the network isn't necessarily seen as like competitors, but like best practices for certain things. And that's why like I'm really proud of your leadership in the College Retention Working Group, because it was stepping into a space where I knew that we were seen and we were seen in many ways as like a model program in some ways, whether it was for all the right reasons or for all of the different reasons, but we were showing up. Tulsa was always showing up. And I remember when we were in Greensboro, we're like walking up the streets of Greensboro and like all these ladies from some other region were like, hey, Tulsa crew, like just like they knew who we were. And that meant to me that like maybe they don't know all of what our programs do, but we're all there to learn the same thing.
Absolutely.
Conferences are interesting spaces to navigate professionally, because it is almost like, in some ways, it can be like, what is this region doing? Is this region going to attract me now that I'm working in talent attraction? But like, it is just like a really cool space to, I think, like have these conversations about a place that you really care about. If you're really in the placemaking space, and that's really where I see like our programs living in the grand scheme of things. Like, we're all focused on making the place that we work for, the region that we work in, a better place for the people in the generation that comes after us. So
absolutely. And we share the same problems. That's what I was thinking, our top industries are not the top industries. Philly healthcare is massive in Philly, right? Healthcare is big in Tulsa, but it's not Philly healthcare. Like, we're talking about different industries. We're talking about some of the same problems, which is employer buy-in can be hard sometimes whenever you're starting a new program. But we're talking about aerospace and energy and they're talking about healthcare and finance. You know, who knows? I'm making some of these things up, but just for examples. But I think it's just really refreshing to sit with someone and have real conversations about our challenges and give each other ideas, and then be able to come back to the table. You know, pretty regularly we meet and say, okay, what's going on? And be able to say, hey, this worked for us. You should try this with your employer. And so that's been really great. So I do think the Young, Smart, and Local network as a whole is awesome. And then I would just put the invitation out if you have an interest in early career talent, or even just making investments in students and pathways to employment, you should join us for the College Retention Working Group, because it's really a place to learn, a place to ask questions, and a place to share what's working for you.
Yeah. And the way you can do that is on LinkedIn. The Young, Smart, Local network is a LinkedIn group that you can request to join. You can also get connected with us, of course, and we can usher that connection. I'm going to promise on camera some work that I'm going to do, which is like putting it on our website, a way to join as well, so that we can get you on the calendar invites for our quarterly Zooms, which again, like all of this is, I wouldn't say asynchronous, but like it's quarterly and remote. So, you know, you can be anywhere in the country to participate in this type of conversation that we're having on those calls.
Absolutely. And I hope to meet you and see you in Tulsa for Young, Smart, and Local 2025.
Yes, I'm literally so geeked.
I know, it's exciting. Hopefully we live up to the standards set by everyone else, because all the other cities have done a phenomenal job.
Yes. I'm super excited. So our last conversation, we're going to pivot a little bit away from our programs and kind of talk a little bit about people management. It's a conversation that kind of came up naturally earlier, actually, when you mentioned team and things like that. I don't know. It's something I'm all about, creating candid conversation, put a camera in front of someone's face and see what they say. And I appreciate you indulging me in this, this kind of conversation. And so, you've been my direct supervisor for nearly a year now, and we've been working together for well over a year. I've kind of seen your management style change and evolve, while also saying like consistently true to who you are. And I think that's really a hard process to navigate. I'm sure you have many stories of what that might feel like. But as a young person that is like directing and managing people, what are some of the things that are like important to you when you're approaching people management? And you, of course, can use examples with me as much as you're comfortable and all of those things.
Yeah, I like this question. It's a hard question, I think, because it requires a lot of self-reflection of what has changed for me. But I tend to be a really reflective person. And so this is something I've thought about a lot lately, where whenever I first stepped into the shoes of managing more people, a lot of my thoughts about management were, oh my gosh, I have to be touching everything all the time and making things work. And I will just say that I have been very, very fortunate that the people who manage me and lead me have made really large investments in my ability to learn about management, learn about how to build your own style, and so on and so forth. So I don't want to, not mention that. I mean, I think people in particular like Justin Harlan, Megan Thomas, Manibata made massive investments in me. And so I think I've learned so much. But I think my biggest takeaway has been, since I came into leadership at Campus Tulsa, that it's okay to be uncomfortable. And sometimes there is feedback that needs to be given, even to like, I sit in this really special seat of having a really high caliber team. And so everyone is so awesome, but that doesn't mean feedback just doesn't need to happen. We all need feedback. I need feedback. And that feedback is often good. It's constructive. It can be so many different things, but I think allowing myself to finally be okay with being uncomfortable sometimes, and knowing I don't have the answer for everything, and being able to pause and say, something about this isn't right, being able to communicate that, explain why a pause might be needed, and then come to the table and say, okay, let's think about this. What's not working or what is working. I think that has been really tremendous for me, is being able to know when to pause, being able to be okay with being uncomfortable. And that was really hard for me at first, especially because, I came into Campus Tulsa. I really, for a long time, was a team of one. I felt like I was juggling all the hats. When I was at Tulsa Public Schools, I was juggling all the hats. When I was at the University of Tulsa, I felt I was juggling a lot of hats. And even when I had team members, I felt like I had to control everything, which I think a lot of leaders feel, because you get promoted into leadership because you do well.
Yeah.
And so transitioning from doing everything and then being able to lead everything is definitely, it takes time. And so I think what I would say to anybody who's going through that transition, and what I wish I would have said to myself, was this is going to take time.
Yeah.
The fact that anybody is thinking, am I doing a good job? Am I being good to the people who I'm like serving and leading? Am I being mindful of them? All of those thoughts mean that you're on the right track. And I'm happy at some point someone said that to me. But I would take the classes that you can take. I would read the books. Right now, I'm reading Radical Candor, because I'm learning a lot about saying things softly is not the kindest thing to do sometimes. Being able to provide real feedback that's direct and honest is kind. And I struggle with that, especially when I'm having to manage up and down.
Yeah.
And so I think really a lot of, this is like a tangent that I've gotten on kind of, but I really think that the key is understanding that discomfort is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's pushing yourself to grow. It's pushing yourself to hear other people's feedback, to understand other people's perspectives, and understand you're not the expert on everything. And having, I think the self-control to say, I'm not the expert. And so I'm going to listen to Evan here. His choice is the best choice. I'm going to listen to Sergio. He's the expert here. I put him in this role for that reason. And he's going to lead this. And it's okay for me to let him do it, even if I know that we're taking a risk or we're doing this. And that's
I would have done something differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is something that I've been able to see my leaders do for me, which has like modeled a great example. But discomfort is a good thing, and allowing other people to push you as a leader and make you uncomfortable and make you think about things is also a good thing. So I would say I'm grateful for a team who will challenge me or tell me no, or say, hey, I think you should think about this longer, because that also has helped me a lot too.
Yeah, I think there's so many things I want to touch on. I think the first thing for me is just like the importance of like this conversation in so many ways, because like if you ask anybody what their biggest problem at work is, it can be any job, it can be any industry. It's their answer is probably issues with their manager. Yeah. Their manager not knowing how to speak to them, not knowing what works in giving feedback, navigating the dynamic of having a manager is sometimes like people's biggest stressors in work. And so I think that in some ways, like that is like the important part of the conversation. When it gets to like this corporate executive level where like some of those like feedback moments don't happen, you can kind of position yourself into like a certain like performance pattern where your manager's not checking on you as much, you're getting to operate in your own way. Then it kind of becomes like anyone that has conversations about like leadership development or management, it kind of becomes like self-indulgent, where it like it's just the people that love to hear themselves talk and love to hear themselves like sound really important or whatever. And I feel like that's what turns people off from like actually investing in the management skills that can really, I think, change the way you approach work in general. And so it's interesting. It's a universal problem that's only that's talked about in so many, I guess, just different ways. And so, I mean, as a live reaction to like some of the things that you just mentioned, and really like how they've affected me, I mean, I have like left every role, or I've been in every role. And I feel like I've only been led by like strong, powerful leader, like women in leadership, if that makes sense. Yeah. Every single manager that I've had for my entire professional life has been a woman that has like had amazing, I think, like impact on who I am as a employee and as a worker, and then also like how that's kind of shaped into who I am, both in and outside of work. And so I find that like really interesting to kind of zoom back on in terms of like dynamics, because that is also super important to that universal problem. What is the person that's giving you feedback even look like?
Yeah.
And can I accept feedback from a person that does not hold any of the same identities as me?
Yeah.
I find that an interesting part of the conversation. And so, I think in terms of like this conversation about management styles and management of stepping into it, being uncomfortable, I think that your advice applies to that conversation, and like being vulnerable, starting the conversations, and being okay with uncomfortability is something that like you don't just wake up and be like, oh, I'm great outside of my comfort zone, I can handle it. Find ways to edge into that, if you will, like, and that can be hard. I don't really have a number one place I'd tell you to go look, but I think just like thinking about it is helpful, and that's kind of why I wanted to start this conversation around it.
Yeah, and have people who hold you accountable. I think that's it. It doesn't have to be your boss, or I would actually recommend maybe not your best friend, but someone who you've seen lead well. If you are seeing someone who leads well and you can have these conversations with them or grab their time, often to hear, hey, this is the conversation I had the other day. Give me some feedback. What do you think about this?
Yeah.
Am I being fair? Like, I have people who I can go to and say, this is my gut reaction. Is that fair? Because I'm starting to think about it and I'm not sure I'm being my best self in that.
Yeah.
And I do think having accountability partners. I did do the leadership lab cohort, which I think Tracy Spears and Wally do a really good job. And they talked about having, your own personal board of directors and people who you go to about certain things in your life. And I do think that having someone you can connect with over work or leadership to say, this is what my biggest challenge is right now. These are the ways that I'm handling it. Tell me where you're seeing gaps. Tell me where you're seeing problems. I think there's a lot of women in Tulsa who do a really good job of this. I keep an eye on quite a few. But I think that you're totally right in a lot of the things that you said. And I think one thing I wanted to point out that you said is like in the current worlds of, we're going to supervise and be supervised people who we don't see ourselves in. And I think, as a leader, one thing that I've seen some people in Tulsa do really well that I think is worth mentioning out loud is doing the work to have the respect that even if you and I cannot relate on anything about who we are, the respect is there so that when feedback comes and goes, the core of that relationship is that I respect you as a person, I see you as a person, and I value you as a person. Then feedback is so much better received and you can have real conversations. And I think that is something I've also been able to learn from people just in the Tulsa ecosystem that I think is worthwhile. Yeah,
absolutely. I love that. I think that's a great thing to plug. And maybe one thing that I think our team has done a really interesting job of kind of managing is like this, and I think Cercio introduced this to us, the user manual type of like rules of engagement. And I think that's something, let me explain that, but it's basically like, how do I receive feedback? How do I operate? This is what I do. This is how I receive information. This is how I respond to information. This is like communication around that. Like, I think putting it out there, he challenged me to do that like my first week or so. Having it very at least communicated up front about that is awesome. I think something to keep in mind too about this conversation is that it's not applicable to every industry. Like there are certain industries that you just take orders. You just say yes, or you have to assume responsibilities even when they're not given to you. And that sometimes does not even affect the manager's perception of you because it needed to be done anyway. And so I guess I want to challenge like people out there to, apply this as it relates to you in the ways that it can. But I also hope to empower, people to be change makers in their industries. And, I don't want for it to be like a dictator in the workplace, you know? And sometimes like your boss can be seen as that. And so how can you navigate that? I don't know, but I hope to help. I hope that something in this conversation could help you think about it differently.
Absolutely.
Well, Brooke, we've reached the end of this episode. I think we've had a great conversation, and I'm really excited to see you for the rest of the day because we work together.
I know. See you in 30 minutes.
Exactly. We have a meeting, I'm sure, this afternoon together. But I really just want to thank you for coming on to grow with us again and having this conversation about, the exciting changes in our professional lives and in our personal lives, and really kind of getting honest about some stuff and sharing some things that we're looking forward to. So thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you, and for the conversation always. And I appreciate your time and just having me here. And I look forward to seeing you in, like I said, probably 30 minutes. So thanks, Evan.
Awesome. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of Grow With Us. Thank you for listening to this episode of Grow With Us. Grow With Us is supported by In Tulsa Initiatives. If you're interested in learning more about In Tulsa services for job placement and workforce development, please visit talent.intulsa.com. From there, you can join our talent network where you'll get access to our newsletter, and our talent team will make sure we put the right opportunities on your radar. We put the choice to pursue a new career and opportunities in your hands. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to be notified when more episodes of Grow With Us are released. Let us know what you think about how we're doing by rating and reviewing. It really helps. Grow With Us is edited and engineered by Rant9 Productions and Jesse Ulrich. This has been Grow With Us.